Hour number two, Chasing Big Joe, 102.5 The Game, live today from the Omni Nashville Hotel at Bar Lines. Having a great time so far. Coming up this Saturday over at Vanderbilt, it's the black and gold game. You can actually hear that on 94.9 The Fan, starting at 12:45 with coverage there. And to talk more about that into spring practice, we bring in Vanderbilt football coach Clark Lee, who is with us now. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I've got a better idea. Listen to the broadcast while you're in the stadium. How about that?
I love that idea. I think that is the perfect thing to do. It helps us both out, and I know that it's free. Fans can claim tickets on the website on the football schedule page. So just go to vucommodores.com, and you can get your tickets and come hang out. How has spring practice been for you guys?
It's been good. I mean, I think spring ball for coaches is the best because you're just focused on progress and trying to just get better every day. I think our guys have maintained an energy level and an intensity. They've been physical, and we've covered ground. Well, we've gotten somewhere this spring. Obviously, we're not ready to play yet. We got a long way to go, but I think I'm proud of the way the guys have approached the work, and we're excited to be out there Saturday in front of the fans and show them where we've gotten to, and also excited to turn the page and get to the work that we need to do in the summer to be ready for training camp.
So, I feel like it's ever evolving. Is the transfer portal done, or is it still open?
The transfer portal's done. So we have. I mean, there are some guys that are probably looking for homes still, but there's not a second portal window this year. We went to one window in January, and so we know who our team's going to be. We'll add a couple of parts this summer from guys that are graduating high school, and we'll be joining our roster in the summertime. But on the whole, it's nice to know who our team is. It's nice to know that that's not going to change, and we can really just focus on the work that needs to be done moving forward.
We're talking to Vanderbilt football coach Clark Lee on the Chasing Big Joe show. Coach, I think I asked you this before when you were on. What is your goal of spring ball? Because I think I told you when I played college spring ball, we just beat the hell out of each other in spring practice. We didn't learn much. You're obviously a lot smarter than my coaches back then. What is your goal for spring ball?
Well, it's a chance to start formation of a football identity as a team. So, can I teach them, and can we understand what good football looks like? What are the kind of foundational elements of playing good football? And for us, that's playing with effort, fundamental mastery. So the work in individual drills to really internalize the technique we're going to need to win. Can we be physical? Can we start to understand what execution of our systems looks like? Can we be a smart team that learns how to study film, making the available play to put pressure on the other side, and then playing with pre-snap and post-whistle discipline? Those 7 things are what we focus on, kind of bringing to the forefront every day and really trying to just form our identity as a football team into playing of football. Different than when you and I played. These aren't 3-hour sessions. They're 90 minutes, 95 minutes where we're in and out. We work with efficiency. We want to attack the work with urgency and get our work done and also focus on recovery. So what I've told the guys is it's 5 weeks in preparation for 5 months. So we have to focus on our habits, behaviors, our systems for recovery, knowing that spring ball is 5 weeks, that, we need to, it's a test run for what will be a 5-month grind or a 5-month marathon in the fall.
Well, I know you've been asked this a million times, but what was the goal for you for Jared Curtis during the spring practice?
We needed to see him just at the beginning of his time, learning systems process, gaining familiarity in the system, gelling with teammates. And really my goal for him was to go out there and make as many mistakes as he could possibly make so he could learn from them. And I've been really impressed with him, man. I got to tell you, this guy is humble. He's hardworking. He's very aware of the things that he needs to be doing to improve himself. And we have a good baseline for him now that we can kind of shift attention in the summer to how we fine tune him in his process and what he's looking at pre-snap and post-snap, and give him the best chance to win the job in training camp. Obviously, these 4 guys are competing hard. They all want the job, and they've all had moments of explosive play, and I'm proud of the progress they've all made. Jared's the new one. Jared's got the most ground to cover in terms of just the mental parts of this, but we have a good plan for him this summer, and my goal is for all four of these guys to feel like they all got a fair shot at the job, and the best man wins. But what's been cool about Jared is as he's learning, as he's growing, the physical tools are undeniable, and so fans will be able to see this on Saturday. But the ball off his hand looks different. His ability to be explosive in the pass game. We've had him live a couple times this spring where he's been able to create with his legs. There's a lot to be excited about there, and for us, it's just a matter of how we help him fill those mental gaps that put him in a position potentially to strengthen the performance of the other 10 players on the field.
Clark Lee is with us. Along those lines, Coach, do you with him being a freshman, him being a young guy, I mean, you got a senior, a junior, a sophomore, and a freshman in your quarterback room, which is pretty cool. But do you almost want to see some of those, like, thinking like a freshman, thinking like a guy that this is new to him because that's going to help you teach him more? Or, I mean, if he comes in and like he may be a freshman, but he's acting like, he's done it before and been there for a few years, is that what you're looking for, or is it a little bit of both?
No, right now it's the freshman. We want to see the freshman. We want him to not try to hide from the progress he needs to make. One of the things that's interesting, and again, we're talking about someone who has elite skills, elite tools. And so, he can get himself out of problems with the velocity of his ball and his ability to put it where he needs it to be. And so some of the gaps that he has mentally, he's covering with just the physical abilities. But, to win at the level we want to win, we're going to need to combine both. He's going to need to have a process that he's kind of stapled to before the ball snaps. That's going to allow him to be on time and in rhythm with his receivers and really play within the structure of the offense. But what we've seen from him is when it breaks down, he's got an incredible creative expression that comes to the forefront and has been a lot of fun to watch. But we want to put him in stressful situations right now, just like we want to put all four of those guys in stressful situations. We want to learn where they're strong, where they need attention and work, and I think we've accomplished that. Again, I think they're all four problem solvers in their own way, and it's been fun to watch them navigate some of the tough situations where we put them behind the chains, off schedule on second down, and then to be off schedule on third down, multiple blitz looks and 7 up on the line of scrimmage, just trying to get them in a mode of, again, problem solving from that quarterback position. A large part of that is mental, and then there's a part of that that's also physical. And with Jared in particular, the physical parts of it are, again, undeniable. I mean, you see him every day. The mental parts of it are where we're working, and it's not a lack of capability. This is a really smart guy who's really excited to learn the position. It just takes some time and repetition. That's the process we're in now, and that's why I'm not in a rush, to name a starter, because we need to see where he can get to, and we need to see where the other guys measure out, and we need to make the best decision for this team to win in our first game.
That's why you're a very good head coach, and Chase and I will never be a very good head coach. Coach, a week from today, I know it's a spring game is this weekend, but a week from today could be a nice weekend for the Vanderbilt Commodores, Diego in the draft, Eli Stowers in the draft. I want to ask you personally, though, what's it like to see a guy that has bought into your program get to the next level? It's got to be a great feeling. Whether it was here, Notre Dame, wherever you were, it's got to be a good feeling to see a guy that you've coached and loved on get to the next level.
It's incredible, and I've been fortunate in my career to be able to experience it a number of times now. But I will tell you that it feels different as a head coach, and I think particularly when you talk about Vanderbilt and this program and where we've come from. We have not had a lot of draft picks here. In fact, I've had one in my time, and that was our long snapper a year ago, and obviously, we celebrate that, but I'm really interested in continuing to grow this program to where you're hearing Vanderbilt players' names called often in the draft. And so I feel like this draft is a great next step for us. I'm so excited. Part of the reason I work is to facilitate the dreams of the players. and certainly draft weekend will be a dream come true for a lot of those guys. And the other thing too is we'll have a number of guys that'll sign free agent contracts after the draft that have been such deeply impactful players in our program, and we're going to look up, and these guys are going to be playing long careers because of who they are and the kind of workers they are, and again, how we've collaborated in their growth here over the last, in some cases, 4 or 5 years. So big moment. Obviously, so excited for Diego, so excited for Eli. Great for Vanderbilt football. Want to continue to see Vanderbilt players featured as they take the next steps towards their long-term dreams.
You talked about Jared's process in growing as a quarterback in your program. What Diego accomplished with you all in the last couple of years. You've said glowing things around him, but if an NFL team does take a chance on him, and I believe they will, I believe his name will be called next weekend at some point, what are they getting from a guy that isn't worried about being too small, isn't worried about not having some of the intangibles that maybe some of the quarterbacks at the top of the draft may have? What are they getting in Diego if they call his name and bring him on their team?
Well, listen, first of all, I can't say enough, and I've said a lot about Diego, what I believe in him as a person. He is a program changer. I think he's an organizational changer. I think he's a guy that's going to elevate everyone in the locker room. And he does it not in ways – I think we sometimes kind of put too much focus on guys that are getting on their soapboxes and giving, pregame speeches in the locker room. That is not who he is. This is a guy that is dedicated and devoted to process. He makes quiet connections. He invites people over to his house. He takes care of them. They go to meals. He's, if you ask my kids, he's like their brother. This guy he relates to all kinds of people, all ages. And he'll do that in an NFL locker room too. He's a winner. So you're talking about a guy who's built his career at Nimi, New Mexico State, and Vanderbilt, and he's won at all three places. And at New Mexico State and Vanderbilt, he's helped teams to 10-win seasons. So that you cannot put a value on that as far as an approach, a mindset, the leadership, the confidence, all of it. But I think what is underappreciated with him is how good of a quarterback he is. So, I've talked a lot about his character and about the things he does in the locker room and, how close we are as people. But this dude is a really good quarterback. His development here over the last 2 years has been remarkable. I think if you look at us in terms of our offensive identity in 24 and how we got to that bowl game, we were running the ball. It was almost like an option team, in a lot of ways. Last year, we were one of the most explosive offenses in the country, and that wasn't because we were throwing hitches and they were catch and run plays. This guy was pushing the ball down the field. If you look at his metrics with respect to yards per completion, big game throws, throws beyond the sticks, he's up there with the guys that are being talked about going pick one. And so you have the combination of this absolute warrior who has such a relatability in the locker room and the ability to build connection in the most pure ways. And then you have a really talented quarterback. And I don't think Diego would be who he was if it weren't for the physical stuff, meaning, he is who he is because he's 5'10" and not 6'4", and that's actually what makes him special. You cannot deny his physical abilities, his durability, the things that he's done where he's put our team on his back at times in the last 2 years and willed us to victory, taken hits, stood in the pocket, delivered throws. All those things show up. And so I can't wait. Wherever he goes, I'm going to buy the jersey. I'm going to be the biggest fan. I'm excited to watch him. I think he's on the front end of a long career, and next weekend will be a big celebration for him.
No doubt about it. Coach, appreciate your time as always. Have fun this weekend with the spring game, and we look forward to talking to you very soon.
Hey, thanks, guys. Y'all be well.
Absolutely. That is Coach Clark Lee, Vanderbilt Commodores. Again, VUCommodores.com. You can go and get free tickets to the spring game coming up on Saturday over at Vanderbilt, and we appreciate his time. We got another coach
We
going
do.
to join us here in a second. Our coach, Coach Jeff Fisher, going to join us here in just a second, live from Bar Lines at the Omni Nashville Hotel. It's 102.5 The Game and Chasing Big Joe. We told you it was going to be a packed show live here at Bar Lines here at the Omni Nashville Hotel. The Nashville Cats season gets underway tomorrow. Or the Cats, I got to get used to that. The Cat season gets underway starting tomorrow in Clarksville. And to talk more about that, we bring in Coach Jeff Fisher, who is with us now, Commissioner of AF1. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing really well. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
How are you guys?
We're good. We're good. Do you want to start? You lost one of your buddies this week, Coach Mack.
Yes, we did Monday.
Yeah.
I'd love to reflect a little bit about him. I've never met a person in my life that had a more positive influence on anyone and everyone that he crossed paths with than Mac.
Yeah.
He was one of those guys that you could meet and talk to him for 5 minutes and walk away from him, and you think you've known him all your life. He's one of those guys. We lost a real good one.
Yeah.
We really did. And he fought, and it's been a long month and a half or thereabouts. But I was very fortunate, to be, I don't want to say the inner circle, but I was there. It feels a little unusual. Those all the listeners gone through it when you've had a loved one that, that's fighting, and then Lord takes them. And so, kind of weird not being back in ICU right now, like we were. But, the people that he touched over his career and the people that reached out and made trips in to see him and everything, it's just amazing. And the outpouring that I got, personally, from people over the last 30 or 40 years has really been special.
How influential was he when he joined the Titans with you and you hired him in 2004 to coach linebackers? Was he to kind of take it, that was that transition point that, the first run was had run its course. You had guys that ended up leaving, and then the next wave was coming in. How influential was he in kind of helping you develop that next era of the Titans?
Well, he was very, very important. I mean, he would go. He was in his room, and his responsibility was the linebackers at that point. And, everybody's responsible for their position groups. But Mac had, over, the previous 10 years, had gotten a lot of experience. He was a defensive coordinator, linebacker coach, defensive coordinator, interim head coach, and then got fired out at Arizona. And that's when I reached out to him. I said, hey, why don't you come on in here, and because Mac had aspirations of moving on and potentially trying to get another head coaching job. I said, why don't you come on in here and just settle down? I'll take care of all the stuff at the end of the hall that needs to be taken care of, and you just focus here and coach linebackers and get back to what you're really good at. And so he did. So the coordinators, Greg Williams, as you mentioned, had left, and Jim Schwartz had left, and so now we're in that transition period, and so he was extraordinary. I mean, and then when we left here, I promoted him, I think, somewhere along the line to assistant head coach defense, and then when I went to St. Louis, that's what he was. He was assistant head coach, period. And so, at the end of the hall, and I said this numerous times, I mean, at the end of the hall, days get busy, things come up, you can have the best well-planned day, and then, an hour into it, things are gone haywire because all kinds of stuff comes out. He's the one that sticks his head in the door and goes, you okay, you need me to do anything? And that's just how he was wired. And I guarantee you, he knew every single player's kids' names, coaching staff, grandmas. I mean, he was just Uncle Mac at that point. And for me, as I stepped away, from Mac a little bit, but not on Sundays and not personally, but professionally, the impact that I think he had on Titans radio was just off the charts.
We're talking to Jeff Fisher on the Chase and Big Joe show. You've dealt with hundreds of coaches. What made him special, and why does this one hurt so much?
Mac he had that way of, it was communication. He was so honest, and the people, players just trusted him when they walked in the door. A lot of times, as I got into my career, players were starting to, it was different. It was a little different. There were a lot of distractions, a lot of things. And, they come in and they don't know who to trust. And, there's a self-respect issue and kind of things. But, boy, Mac was the guy. Mac was the guy that they would come to. Mac was the guy that handled so many of the behind-the-scenes little personal issues for them. Hey, man, it's like, brother, I know, I got
right.
it, I got it. So, that's what he was really different. I mean, the one thing I do want to point out that I didn't get a chance to talk about and appreciate the opportunity was how Mac's life was affected and rocked when he lost Pat Tillman.
Right.
Yeah.
That was different. That was a different Mac. And, I mean, he was just devastated. And so, I talked to him a lot about that and, and everything. And just for the listeners, Pat Tillman was a player of his with the Arizona Cardinals. He was a good player. He was one of those heavy-hitting, big-bodied safety guys that was playing special teams. And then immediately following 9/11, Pat walked away from the Cardinals and enlisted and then was tragically killed in battle and friendly fire. And that was, because Mac was communicating him through the whole process, whatever, his journey through into special ops and all that stuff and what he was doing. So, but Mac was, he saw it as a blessing in his life to be able to coach a player that felt that strong about this country and what had happened, that he was going to go in and make a difference.
Wow. We all knew Coach Mac. I was in the cafe one day over there, and he said, I want to show you something. Went down to his office, and he had the invitation where Emmitt Smith had invited him to the Hall of Fame induction. And Emmitt only played for him for, a year or two?
Yeah, that's
and
right.
I was like, that's pretty great. And it would just talk about the impact that this man had on this legendary player in a short period of time, and it all speaks to what you're talking about right here.
Yeah, I mean, on the way over here, I was on the phone, a former 85 Bear. He was there 1 or 2 years after that. Kurt Becker, a guard, good friend of mine out of Michigan, called to find out, what had happened and express his condolences. So he touched a lot of people over a long, long time.
Let me ask you this, not to put you on the spot. You talk about what a great job he did on Titans radio. Would you do that for 1 year?
Would I do it?
Titans radio? To continue the legacy of Coach Mack, what he did? You could say, I don't want to talk about it and move on. But here's a man who he did great on the radio, and he was one of your best friends. We would love to have you.
At Big Joe on the
Big Joe tackling that big back's like bumping your head off a frozen truck bumper.
We think you'd be
keep
fantastic.
Your powder dry, brother. That's that on a scale of between 1 and 10. That's some good shit. Okay, how am I doing so far?
You're fantastic. That was good. I was waiting for that right there.
I would do anything for Mac.
Yes,
and that's what's awesome.
Would.
Coach Jeff Fisher is with us. Can we step away for a second, and then we'll talk some Cats?
Yeah,
we'll have more with Coach.
Thank you.
Coming up next here from Bar Lines at the Omni Nashville Hotel, Chase and Big Joe on this Thursday on 102.5 The Game. Chase and Big Joe, 102.5 The Game here on this Thursday. We're at the Omni Nashville Hotel at Bar Lines talking about with our buddy Coach Jeff Fisher. The Cats get things started tomorrow at F&M Bank Arena. AF1 tickets looking good.
Yeah,
for the first game.
Looking good. Yeah, we, the Cats had a bye for week one. Yep. We got odd number teams. They got it last week. We had 4 games. We had our Vice game of the week, and that thing, came off okay. We got a lot of work to do with the broadcast, but the HTN stuff, the streaming stuff, once we got it settled in San Diego, we had an Oceanside and Beaumont play, and there were some issues, but we got through everything, and so you can stream the Cats on HTN, which is Hometown Network, and free charge, no paywall there, and watch the broadcast. So that's we're excited about that. We will have 2 or 3, maybe even 4 game of the weeks down the line with respect to the Cats. But overall, I thought it was a good opening weekend. Numbers are good. The digital numbers and all social media numbers are really good, way ahead of last year. Tickets are good, and so it's going to be a challenge. Anytime week one's a challenge, but fortunately, we have a head coach here up there rather that's had plenty of week ones in his career. He's 12 wins away from becoming the all-time winning this indoor football coach. So Coach Arbette. So kind of looking forward to see how things unfold.
Well, we're excited to be a part of things again. Unfortunately, I'm going to miss the first game, but George Plaster will be, I think, a good one to hang out with.
I recognize that name.
Yeah, that's a name that
unacceptable.
Yes.
Sorry, Coach. Week
Yeah,
one,
sorry.
unacceptable. For that.
That's right.
We want a commitment there. We had Mayor Golden on yesterday.
I heard that. Yes, I heard that. I was a little busy with Coach Mack stuff, but
just the excitement up there. But for you, this whole new brand territory up in Clarksville, they've bought into you guys. It's got you and Jeff Jarrett are doing all the videos up there. It's got to be fun going to uncharted territory.
Yeah, it was, and a memory comes back. It was a week before Christmas, and there was a Christmas parade up there in downtown Clarksville. And F&M Bank Arena had a float or what have you, and so they invited us up, and I jumped on that thing. And now it's cold, and it's foggy, and people don't really know who's on these floats. But I was absolutely amazed. They said there were over 30,000 people.
Wow.
In this parade route for their Christmas parade.
That's fantastic.
It was amazing, and so there's a lot of excitement up there. When we put this season tickets on sale, boom, we had a volley. We got close to 100 or 1,000 the first day. Single game went on, 6 or 8 weeks ago, and they're still rolling. So you guys saw it. It was pretty cool.
Oh,
so, yeah. So we're kind of looking forward to getting through it. There's always without the preseason and and all the preseason game where you can kind of dress rehearse and things like that. There's things that have a tendency to not to be overlooked. That just something may be plugged in wrong. You got to make sure.
Right.
So we're going to go up there early and make sure everything's working.
Yeah, it's exciting because the 2 games up there last year, you knew, right? I was talking to you, and you're looking out in the crowd, and you're like, look at this. You knew, right? Yeah. And so it's even better when you know, and it all comes to this fruition of wow.
Exactly. So we're just hoping things go smoothly. That the venues, there's really one entrance, remember that big one there, and so we're hoping that goes quick so we get people in their seats and get them going. So we there's a lot going on. I got a flag football game at halftime, and
there you go.
The Lady Cats are all fired up to perform and that, and then we got a lot going. Jeff Jarrett included.
It's good.
I made him put in writing he wasn't going to take my rear end down at midfield with some freaking wrestling move. That's cool. This is kind of where I met him. Remember this?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it was right over there.
Yeah, right over there. Yeah. Known a lot about him, and it was the first time I met him personally. And shoot, I've been on the phone with him 3 or 4 times a day. Last month.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Jeff Fisher is with us. To ask you, we're a week away from the draft. And, you've been through this so many times. But Mike Borgonzi spoke today, and we were talking about this off the air. And he was asked about, the GM and the coach, you're always going to have agreements. You're always going to have disagreements. That's a part of it. But when you're coming up on a player and the GM really likes it, but the coach just doesn't feel it, how important is it to find that middle ground? Because he said – if coach is not comfortable with the player, we're not going to take that player. And I thought that was refreshing to hear. How important is it to find that middle ground, whether it's with the head coach, a position coach, a coordinator, and then the talent evaluators, the front office, to agree on when to take a guy?
I'd also say it works both ways.
Sure.
So if the coach – the GM wants a player. It's a two-way street. And what you have to do is all the work's been done. We hope that. No, I know it's been a blur of an off season for coach and his staff and everything. But they got meetings. Their board's probably pretty close to being right now. It will be right. So the head coach and the GM are going to sit there and say, okay, this guy versus that guy, this guy versus that guy. If these 3 guys are gone, and you're just going to go through that scenario. So you should have most of those things worked out. But it's really good to hear that you've got guys working together on the same page. Now, the obvious issues there are the general manager has had more time evaluating these kids, and he's had more input from his scouts and his staff and the directors and all that stuff. And so the head coach typically is going to see as many, as this is the way I did it, I was going to see as many as I possibly could that had second round and up grades, maybe middle, third round grades and up, meaning I'm going to watch 2 or 3 or 4 games of each one of those guys on our board. You don't have time to go down and look at the fourth round, fifth, and all the, into the sixth round. You just don't have the time. So that's where you have to trust your people, and then you may have to go look at a highlight tape or a point of attack tape really quick if you got a couple guys that are down there, and you got. Let's say you're in the 6th round, you got a 4th round grade on a kid, and you haven't seen him. You want to see him, and so there's a lot of communication that goes on, and that would also include, they should have a pretty good idea about movement. If they're going to trade and up or back or then go here and go there, should have all those scenarios already have been rehearsed, and so I think I'm especially excited about this because I think this is the best staff that they've had in years. I'll just say that.
I agree with that.
I say with the coordinators and then coach. I hate to say this, but there's no sign of any daycare around there anymore.
Yes.
It's
You
real.
just made his day.
This is a real deal. Okay,
I love it.
I'm not going to put up with anything.
I love it.
Yeah.
As a head coach, how much did you deal with scouts? Were you allowed to talk to scouts? Did a scout come to you and say, "Hey, coach, there's this guy at some school. You got to look at him"? I mean.
So, okay, real quick. Okay, we're gonna talk about. Let's say we're gonna talk about tight ends today, for example, and we got everybody in the draft room. Okay, and on the board there, you'll have your tight ends from the one that was graded the highest all the way down to the bottom. And so you're gonna start at the top or start at the bottom. You call the name out. The area scout's gonna read his report. Okay, then the assistant director is going to read his report. The director of scout is going to read his report, and then the GM may chime in. Okay, and then the coach reads his report. So now you've talked about this player. Okay, so everybody's got a good feel for him and say, okay, is he okay in this area, or do we want to move him up just a little bit, and then we'll revisit the player and so on and so forth. So yes, the scouts are in. They should be in. They should be reading their reports. Talking about everything and anything and everything, character, athletic ability, background, family, history, and now it's how many colleges did he play at,
right,
and all that stuff. But so you're gonna throw all this information out, and if it's a guy that the head coach that I hadn't seen, I'm taking notes and and so said this and he said that, and if I got questions, and you can hopefully ask questions. You should be able to have open dialogue in there and ask questions. You should ask the scouts questions,
right?
What games did you see him play? Okay, and who did he play against? That's where you got to really be specific because you want to make sure a left tackle's that you've seen him against a really good pass rusher. Things like that.
Right. You hit some home runs though in the 4th, 5th, 6th round. Derek Mason, David Stewart, Bo Scaife, Cortland Finnegan. How did those guys become successful when they're not day one and hell, not even day 2 guys?
Well, we had a lot of information. Floyd had put together a really good group of guys. I mean, from CO to, Rich Snead was really valuable and rest his soul and all that. But what happens sometimes is your board, you've got them graded numerically, okay? And then there's a line underneath. All these guys above the line, we have first round grades on. And then the next group is your second round group. Okay, so they're rated numerically, but they're also separated by rounds. Okay, so you're in the 3rd round right now, and you have a player up above the 2nd round line. Okay, you've got a higher grade on him. Now you really got to pay attention to the fact that he's there. Why is he still there? Were we wrong? Is there a character issue? Is there an energy issue? And so you have to identify all those aspects. And all this, I'm sure now it's all done, from an automated standpoint. But we would have different color shields, half a red shield. I mean, the guy's got injury history, or you have a little yellow shield over his name, and that guy's got some character issues in his background that make sure that we're talking about. Now you take the shields off. off before before the draft, and you go, and some of them you leave on there. So, but that's kind of how. So how do you get those guys? Well, it's coaches buying into it. It's an area scout. Wait a minute, I saw him do this. He can do this for us. I mean, I remember Chuck Cecil just jumping on the table for Cortland, and oh, by the way, did he love Michael Griffin? Okay,
yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, they both went to Pro Bowl as rookies. So
you're right.
Yeah. Right? So he knew. I mean, Chuck can evaluate DBs, and that's the other thing you got to be careful of. There are really good coaches out there in the meeting room, the NFL coaches that are less than capable, or what I want to say, that might be average or below average evaluators. They can coach the position, they can do this stuff, but they have a hard time telling who's better, okay, and who they like and voicing their opinion. So as long as you have them evaluated and you understand that, then because you're going to get a high grade on a guy and you're going to get a low grade on a guy,
sure.
and so you got to kind of have to average that out and put it back up. But this is a fun week for them right now. I can't imagine what's going on. They got the new staff in there, and everybody's doing it. And they got late night dinners and catering, and that board's just flying all over
right.
the place. And rechecks. And hey, did you get a report on that ACL on so and so in his freshman year? We need to da da da. So there's a lot of information still coming in.
Do you miss it?
I missed that part of it. Oh yeah. I missed. Yeah, of course you do. Yeah, well that's the fun part is and then what you miss is when you get your guy, your guy's there. Are we all good with this? Everybody good with this? Because when we pull this guy off this board, we all drafted this to get this guy together, and so did the security guard. This is his pick. You don't want to hear any of that business,
right.
Through the building and all the second guessers. So I remember had fun with Mark Mariani. Mark had played with my son Brandon at Montana, and I knew Mark. I knew his parents. I knew, and I kind of told them I went up and saw a game during a bye week and watched Mark running around, and I was up in the suite with his parents because I was cold, and I was joking around saying, I just might draft him in a year or two whenever he's eligible, and so here you go. We got a really we had a 5th round grade on him. It's the 6th round, and why not? We need a returner. He'll be a good slot receiver, and boom, we take him, and oh my gosh, did I get a bunch of grief from some of the local writers?
I was in that meeting
because I drafted my son's college roommate.
Yep.
And what happened his freshman year, his rookie year?
Pro Bowl.
Pro Bowl.
Yep.
Yeah. One of the best returners.
Yeah.
They've had.
Now, do you think I would waste a pick on somebody like that? I mean, it's like, now, let me tell you a really quick story about waste a pick. I'm going to go way back. San Francisco 49ers, I was there 2 years. I was there in 92, 93. Okay. George Seifert, Carmen Policy, Eddie DeBartolo, Joe Montana, Steve Young, that era.
Yeah.
Okay. Carmen Policy, okay, who was the president, okay, he got to make a pick traditionally every year. And there were 12 rounds back there, so I don't know if he got the 12th round, he got to pick the 12th round or the 11th round, whatever it was. But when I got there, they said, Carmen's going to be up. I wonder who he's going to take. I went, who's? And they go, Carmen, the president. I go, he's taking up. He's going to draft a player? And they go, yeah. And so anyway, Carmen Policy gets up there, and he's kind of looking around, and we're on the board, and he reaches up, and he takes Elvis Gerback, quarterback from Michigan.
Yep.
Right? Okay. He's still on the board. It's a 12th round. He was, he would have been a free agent, whatever. And he took him because he had all these vowels in his last name.
Oh, my God.
Isn't that awesome?
Yes.
And he played. He was there. He played.
That's right.
He was a good player, a good college player.
All the vowels. Oh, that's great, man.
Yeah. I want to go back to something you said earlier about, looking at a guy that has some character flaws that, we call it stuff, had some stuff, whether it's a DUI or a fight or something. How did, if there was the consensus of like, we know this stuff's there, we're going to deal with it, how did you kind of mentally prepare for that, or what were some of the conversations you would have with the player of knowing there was some history of like, you're going to leave that at the door when you walk in here?
Yeah, that's the case, but that's already done. I mean, if a guy had an issue, had an arrest, we would have all the information regarding it, and then of course you want to interview the player at the combine if he's a top 300 guy, or bring him in for a visit, interview him again and again, and get all the details, because word of mouth and people, reality can change, and sometimes it's a self-defense thing. Sometimes we would have reacted the same thing because somebody insulted his wife or girl, things like that. So get as much information as you possibly can, and then make your decision. And there were a lot. We had a few over the years where they've fallen. Guy a second round grade, third round grade, and now he's down there fifth, sixth. Okay, we want to bring him in as a college free agent. Okay, it's sit down and here we go. And so I always had the conversation with the guys prior to the draft, that 20 visit guys and guys whenever I could, and I basically praised them for. I asked them if you remember the first time you put a helmet on, the first time you looked through that plastic. How old were you? You were 7 or 8 years old, and they're nodding, they're smiling. I said, could you imagine where you are right now? It's like, congratulations, you are just about ready to catch your first pass or have your first carry or your first pass rush in the NFL. I mean, this is so cool. I mean, you're like a week away from that. Yeah, Coach, yeah, I'm really excited. Did you know that your last play is about this far away from your first play in the NFL? And it is basically, it's like they look at you and they go, what do you mean? And I go, you're born that way in the NFL. That's the reality. Okay, you make a mistake, you do this, you do that. Only you can push it back there 8 or 10 years, that last play. And that's my job, is to help you learn how to do that, kind of thing. And so, I mean, there's a lot of, we had listeners don't see this, but my hands are about 6 or 8 inches apart. That was how thick our draft book was on Johnny Manziel.
Yep.
The information.
I bet.
Yeah.
Oh,
elementary school teachers. Yeah. The waitress at wherever. It's just we had all the information you possibly could get. And I said this to you. I think one of the benefits, and go back to Cam, when Cam was drafted here a couple of years ago, one of the benefits of this NIL stuff and everybody moving is you have more people to interview now.
To talk to, yeah.
You have more people to talk to. Yeah.
Coach, we appreciate it as always.
Thank you.
Good luck tomorrow
night. Sorry if we got out there on a
love it.
Yeah.
We're excited.
And I just want to say to the listeners again, if you got a chance to meet Coach Mack over your lifetime, you've been blessed. And if you didn't, think of him and you'll be blessed, because that is one good man we lost.
Amen to that.
Thank you.
Good luck tomorrow. We'll see you soon.
Perfect. Thank you.
Coach Jeff Fisher joining us on the program. We're going to talk some boxing when we come back. Jason Big Joe, 102.5 The Game.